Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of sports, specifically hockey, and even more specifically in Canada. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick, and I'm joined every week by my lovely and talented co-host,
Grant, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. This is it. 6 months, 8 months, however long it's been since our first podcast, it all boils down to this.
6 months. Well, five-ish months.
Yeah, a few breaks here and there, whatever. Anyways, end of the last regular season show of the season. It's been quite the journey. And you know what the best part is? Because this never happens in the NHL. The best part is there's actually storylines and seeding to be determined over the last week of the season. So I'm excited.
I was thinking about that today. I was like, should we do something gimmicky? Do we do we do kind of like year-end like grades almost? I know there's two teams still competing for a playoff spot, so those ones might be kind of undecided, incomplete at this point. But everyone else we can kind of give like a quick gist from. But then I was like, do we save it for next week? But I kind of feel like next week you start focusing on the playoffs, right? Like you kind of stop looking ahead. So maybe we'll do a bit of a season-y recap, get you guys ready for the last week, I guess, of action here, and then we're done. There's no hockey next week, so.
And this is ignorance on my part, lack of preparation. This is why we need a producer. When does the postseason actually start? Because I know regular season's Friday. Do games begin the Saturday? It feels blasphemous if they don't.
I don't know. You know what? We don't have a producer, but I do have a Google. So NHL Stanley Cup playoff schedule. I should have clicked on that one. Oh no. I feel like they give it a day or two to breathe and then figure out scheduling and look ahead, right? It says right here, NHL playoffs start April 17th.
So the Monday.
All right, cool. So you get a little bit of a reprieve over the weekend. So we do get, there we go. Who needs a producer?
All right, so how badly do you think the NHL is going to fuck this up? Like, you got a whole week to get the schedule ready. Uh-huh. Hockey night in Canada is a decades-old tradition across this country. How much do you want to bet no Canadian teams play on Saturday because Gary Bettman's a fucking weasel?
Yeah, no, in terms of, I bet you everyone plays Friday, or if they do play Thursday, for some reason they take breaks till like Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be something stupid like the Oilers will play somebody in like an afternoon contest on the Saturday, and Toronto and whichever hopefully other Canadian teams, they probably won't play until, they'll probably get the Thursday-Sunday split just because the NHL gets a fucking zero for awareness.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing next Saturday, but if you told me that there was like an early matinee Oilers, Leafs, Jets to round out the evening or something like that, oh boy, that'd be a hell of a little afternoon, right? I guess it makes sense for the Jets to play a little earlier. I feel like making a game start at like 9 o'clock in Winnipeg seems just mean.
You know what? If anything, I bet you it keeps most people out of trouble. Because, like, I want to say, like, 7, 8 o'clock's probably the witching hour for most Winnipeggers. Yeah. But if you say, there's a hockey game, you got to stay up till 9, and then get too drunk, and then you miss all the shenanigans. Maybe this is, like... Maybe it's not a bad thing for Winnipeg.
Like a little corporal, like, municipal arrest sort of type. That's not bad. That's good, Hey, if you ever wanted to run for office in Winnipeg, you got my support.
Clean up the streets of Winnipeg.
Stanky.
With Grant White.
Stanky old streets.
Stanky old streets. With stanky old Grant. Here we go.
Well, there we go. I think we're on to something now. There we go. Campaign promises. If you are new to the show, normally what we do is we'll run through headlines, so we'll do that. Kind of talk about the teams as they come up, as well as kind of grades, the season that was. We'll kind of give a bit of a recap. There's 2 notable games. I think everything else is pretty easy. We got some gambling advice, some fantasy advice, and I think that's it. I don't know. We'll see what else we get to. Kind of depends on time. So looking at the bottom, a lot of teams with 3 teams tied for the worst. When does Montreal? 5th, 6th from the bottom, 27th from the top, the Montreal Canadiens. I honestly have not heard anything. I think they lose games. Once in a while, they'll like beat the Carolina Hurricanes. That's kind of what Montreal's been up to in the last little bit. Any news stories jump out for Montreal? Or do you want to just jump into... Yeah, okay, go ahead.
One quick thing now. What the fuck are they doing winning hockey games? That's the only thing I wanted to say. Why? You lost, I don't even know, probably 20 of the last 24. You're like, you know what? Let's fucking end the season with a bang and just tank it or ruin our odds a little bit more. I don't know. Makes no sense.
Well, it is tricky because then you get... I'm guessing their roster, like if you were to look, they have maybe 40% of their actual roster playing at this moment. Most of them are young call-ups, guys trying to prove themselves, and they don't want to be told to not suck, right? Because they have a chance of making the club next year. They want to leave good impressions with the organization. So it happens, but yeah. Overall, Montreal, I would say a bottom 5 finish. So down the stretch here, you probably want to let Arizona pass you somehow. So you're up a game, you guys are tied. You kind of have to play the scoreboard. I would hope I'd lose out. Maybe Arizona gets a point or two, jumps ahead of you. Bottom 5 finish going into the Connor Bedard draft. Doesn't sound horrendous. I don't know exactly what the odds are. What kind of odds do you think you're losing from 6th to 5th? Is it significant, or does it even matter?
I bet you, I think if I remember correctly, I don't know off the top of my head, the top 3 is where you get like 60% of the odds, and then it just like tumbles from there, but I could be wrong. But Arizona does have a game against the Ducks tonight, so that might be the advantage the Habs need, because they're not beating Toronto, and if the Coyotes can sneak one out against the Ducks, maybe that's the edge.
You know what? It's almost moot, right? So they're 6th, and you're so top team, you get a 25.5% chance. Then it's 13.5 for second, 11.5 for third, and then it drops down to 9.5, 8.5, 7.5, 6.5, 6.5, 3.5, and 3 for the bottom 11. So, I mean, it's a percentage increase between kind of where you're at and moving up. So really, I guess at this point, does it matter? No, not really. If you're not 1 or 2, you might 3 to 7 almost doesn't matter. I don't think it would make that big of a difference.
They're not doing Ricky Bobby any favors with this one with the NHL draft odds, because if you're not first, you just better hope you're second or third.
There you go. That's kind of what you have to hope for. So, the Belle Provence. Speaking of teams that... Why are you winning hockey games? On a 1-game winning streak, the Vancouver Canucks. How do you not beat up on the lowly Chicago Blackhawks? I don't know. Vancouver, you're hanging out at 25th from the top. Is that where you wanted to be at the end of the season? I don't think so. So, any news stories with Vancouver?
No. In fact, thinking about Vancouver just makes me a little angry.
Yeah. Based on their off-season, I would say Vancouver, you had kind of a bad season. I would put it this way. I don't know if you've had a lot of good seasons recently. I would chalk this one up as probably a poor season, poor outing. Yeah, you had your outputs from your Millers, less so than the last couple years. Elias Pettersson looks like he's a point-per-game guy. There are lots of questions now about Quinn Hughes and what the organization, how they manage injuries. I think overall, Vancouver probably had a bad year, right? If we're going to give teams grades, Montreal, you probably ended up with like a B, honestly, from where we're at. Just player development, trying to get a draft pick. B. You didn't get the top spot, but you're okay. Vancouver, on the other hand, I think they were trying to make the postseason. I think they had a squad. The way they were spending money, they probably should have been better than 25th, right? You're not... Well, what were the odds if we pulled that up? You have like a 4% chance. It's terrible. You had a first round pick and you got rid of it for Hronek. I don't know what you're doing. Vancouver, I'm giving you a D-.
That makes me feel a little better. I feel less angry knowing that we're judging them and we're judging them poorly, because I think this is a shit franchise with no direction.
No, nothing. Like, you have a new coach. Is he good? No. He's terrible. I've heard nothing good from ownership, from management of this organization, and those are not the stories you want to be hearing, especially with the younger players, right? Younger players that have those high ceilings. So, I don't know what you do. I guess you try and rebuild. You give it another go next year. But when you bought up Peter out, like, I don't know. Like, what are you doing? Waiting for Pettersson to come up on his, last year of his contract and trade him for a king's ransom? Like, that's maybe almost like a better option at this point. Get rid of Hughes, get rid of Pettersson, try and just reload with like a bunch of young talent. But like currently right now, I don't know.
Not a bad strategy. Trade away their young players so they can throw more money at JT Miller in 7 years. Boom. Problem solved.
Done. That's the thing. And they were talking something about JT Miller apparently really wants to become a Penguin, go to Pittsburgh, so maybe they'll trade him for like Jason Zucker. What are you doing? What is happening? How is Anthony Beauvillier, whatever his name is, coming in for Bo Horvat? What is happening, Vancouver? Terrible. D-. Go away.
Generous D-.
If you would have told me that a Pacific Northeast team that was very close to the border of Washington and British Columbia was going to be in the postseason and the other one would be in the bottom of the standings, I probably been like, of course Vancouver's going to make the postseason. Like, man, you've heard about how good Thatcher Demko is? Oh boy, we got a goalie of the future. Let's go. Choo-choo.
Pretty sure if you cycle back to our season opening podcast, we probably both were saying, this team probably can compete. No, they can't. For the love of God, they cannot. No matter how hard they try, they won't.
And you made Bruce Boudreau cry this season. What's wrong with you, Vancouver? D-. Terrible job. Up to 21st overall. It sucks to be right sometimes. The Ottawa Senators.
I don't even know where to start with these guys. But, so, we can, another time travel moment. Season's about to start. Mick comes on and he says, I think it's going to be a slow start for the Ottawa Senators. And lo and behold, that is what kept them out of the postseason. I think that their loss against the Florida Panthers was strangely poetic because it was like everything was on the line. We need this win against the team that we're chasing. And they put up 40-plus shots on net against them. They dominated the advanced metrics categories, and they still got absolutely fucking demolished. And I was like, that is par for the course. That sums up the Senators season perfectly. They tried their best. It just wasn't good enough. But in the spirit of grading teams, I still think that this was a B, maybe even B-plus season from the Senators in the sense that we got a lot out of them. They got a lot out of their young players, and there was a huge steps in their development. Tim Stützle, amazing. He looks outstanding. Brady Tkachuk does absolutely everything for them. Claude Giroux is looking a little bit out of place on that team right now, but even with him in the fold next year, this is a team that's going to take another step forward and will likely be in the postseason conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say, too. I agree. I think Stützle had an amazing season. I think they have a diamond in the rough there. We've seen ups and downs from Tkachuk. I didn't love his game misconduct, right? Halfway through the second. I know your team's down a little bit, but it's kind of do or die time. And now for you to throw some punches and get kicked out of the game, I question the leadership there. Matthew Tkachuk is a pest. He's a nuisance. I don't know if he's a desirable player. Brady seems like he has a little bit more, charisma. He isn't as big a pain in the ass yet. But stuff like that, like those, lack of judgments in a play like that, right? I think being on the ice for your team down the stretch, especially in when you're trying, before you get eliminated from the postseason, why are you getting kicked out of a game, right? I do kind of question maybe his IQ? Is that what I call it? Like hockey IQ, kind of looking at the situation, reading it. Don't play into your brother's fucking shady ass motherfucking mind games that he's trying to play with you, right? Keep your head on. So that'll be something I'm looking forward to. And how does he handle those situations in the future, right? I get it. You're big. You're strong. Don't give in to it, right? You're better on the ice than sitting in the locker room.
And I think that's part of the development. I think that's
Yeah.
part of recognizing, like, I'm a young 20s kid filled with piss and vinegar. This is how I think I'm going to inspire, and maybe, you know what? I think if you were to ask him retrospectively, I don't think he would change anything.
Yeah.
But I think if you were to ask him in 6, 7, maybe 8 years to be like, here, would you do anything? Maybe the frontal lobe's a little bit more developed at that point, and be like, you know what? Maybe I should have done something different.
Yeah.
Maybe my team needed me in a different capacity that night.
That's it. Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know the inner dynamics. I don't want to, like, ostracize. I'm just saying, in terms of what I've seen, like, Strutzel, great, awesome. Kachuk had some moments where he's quiet and doesn't have those big games. But I've also seen him score with 3 seconds left to send a game to overtime against the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? Like, so I've seen him at leadership on the ice. He needs to be there. He can't be sitting in the locker room. In terms of that, yeah, they've got to do some things with this roster. I do think a big part of their offseason is going to be the new management group that comes in, and what do they do, right? If we see a Ryan Reynolds, somebody who like that, who comes in, who wants to make an impact, yeah, you can make some changes, right? Bring in a overspend for a goalie, overspend for a defenseman or something like that, right? A move like that will kind of shift the needle. So I think with this one, I don't want to give them an incomplete, but I would give them like a C+. They did pretty well. They developed. They're headed in the right direction. But independent of results, with a new management group coming in, this thing could be, you know, like, caution to the wind could be thrown. They could be on a very strict budget this summer, and now they're trading guys. They could tell them the door's wide open. Here's my Sprint Mobile money. Go nuts, you know, go spend. Let's go make some. Let's get frisky. So it'll really come down to kind of the ownership group, right? And I think going away from the Dorian will be a positive. So as a Senators fan, I would feel like disappointed this year, but like the future's still bright.
The future is still bright. I think we got to start peppering Ryan Reynolds on Twitter, maybe Instagram. I don't know. Let's get on his comments and DMs right now. Like, they're going to be looking to build a strong, maybe social media presence, maybe analytics. Maybe they want advice on what not to do DFS wise, because I know 2 guys who would be perfect for that.
That doesn't sound like a terrible job. I mean, I guess I'll take it, but sure, all right. I'll work DFS for the Senators. What does that mean?
Nobody knows, actually, Ryan. We're still digging into that.
NHL.com pays someone every day to pick 4 random players, and we're not sure how it works. So that's just how hockey goes. Like, you just pay people to tell you bad fantasy advice, and he says, "Okay, cool, yeah, all right."
You know those 20-sided dice? The NHL has like 1,000-sided dice, and names just show up.
It's really, really something. All right, so Ottawa, we still love you, just kind of disappointed. Up to a team that we're maybe not disappointed by, but also disappointed by. The Calgary Flames had a bit of a week. They put up a thumping. They got thumped by the Chicago Blackhawks earlier in the week in kind of a must-win game, only to come back, I think it was, Wednesday night, and beat the Jets. They were tied 1-1 after the second. Going in the third, they scored twice. And I believe they're now tied with the Winnipeg Jets for the final playoff spots. So, or no, they're still down 2 points.
I can't remember anyways, I think we jumped the gun a little bit with some of that stanky talk at the outset of the podcast. We're throwing it out, you know, with the Winnipeg Jets. I think the stankiness is actually the Calgary Flames. You go 0-3 against the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, they basically accounted for the Calgary Flames have accounted for 20% of the Chicago Blackhawks wins this season. Like, that's how fucking bad you have been against the worst team in the NHL. And, you know, much like the Senators in their slow start to the season and what likely buried them, I think the Flames are going to have to reassess how they prepare for the Chicago Blackhawks, because it just didn't work this year.
Yeah, no, that was a rough one. I don't know why. I did something. You know, one of those moments where you have that, like, I'm like, oh, the Flames are winning this game. I knew they were beating the Jets, especially when they was tied 1-1 Wednesday night. Didn't pull the trigger live, and then looked back and saw it was 3-1, and I was like, missed opportunity, but kept it close. And they are tied, but the Jets do have a game in hand. So as long as, in theory, they just don't lose, right? Go to overtime. You have kind of the advantage still on the Flames. I'm not sure exactly what the strength of schedule is for those three teams. I don't think it's anything amazing. I don't think like they play any juggernauts, so they should both stand a chance. But speaking, sorry.
Canucks, Preds, Sharks as well.
Okay, and I feel like the Jets have, well, I guess they have 4 games, and I feel like they also have the Sharks or something like that. So, in like the
Preds, Sharks, Wild, Avs.
There you go. No, so like in theory it's tougher, but you really think the Colorado Avalanche care about that game? Probably not.
And this is where it's going to get, and this is where I don't want to speak too soon, because the Central Division, at least when I looked on Thursday, and there weren't, so Thursday morning, and can't remember how Thursday night played out, and there was no games yesterday. The Avs, the Stars, and the Minnesota Wild were all tied. I think it was with 98 points, all 3 teams. So like we can't look past how and first in that division is a huge advantage because you get to basically beat up on one of it's probably going to be Seattle. You're going to get to take on Seattle in the opening round, and the other team, like the other matchup, the divisional Central matchup, is going to be a bloodbath. Like it's just going to be home ice is going to be worth so much. And anyways, I don't know if game 82 is going to have an impact, but if it does, it could mean a lot for both teams.
Yeah, that's fair. As I'm looking at the standings, it does look like Colorado, the Stars, currently both have 100, Minnesota 98. So, yeah, it'll be close down the stretch. Okay, fair enough. I spoke too soon. So, yeah, like that matchup might play into hand, right? But you get a game in hand. We'll see. We'll see if San Jose can be a spoiler. It is. It's fun. It's exciting to watch down, and there is lots of stories and jostling, and things aren't decided. So that's kind of fun. Flames overall, I think everyone, like if you would have said expectation-wise, where do you expect the Calgary Flames? People were thinking, what, first, second, at least second in the Pacific after last season. Man, we got Huberdeau, we got Kadri, we're rocking and rolling. Basically, we're just same old Flames, but better. And they were kind of the same old Flames, but much, much worse. So, just didn't have it clicking. I don't know. Grades on the season for the Calgary Flames? Or is this an incomplete? Like, if they make the postseason now, do we kind of say, I don't know, worth it? What, I don't know. What's your opinion?
So, I wouldn't rate this as incomplete because we know what we have with the Flames. And we were even talking about this years ago about how the acquisition of Jacob Markstrom at the outset of the deal looks okay. But when the longer you're hanging on to him, it was 6 years. He's going to be, 34, 35. Like we're already seeing the impact of an aging goaltender on a team's ability to compete. And analytically, this team stacks up. Huberdeau doesn't really fit well in Suter's system. Markstrom's a bit of a, we'll call him inconsistent, and that's just putting it as politely as we can. The moves that this team made didn't yield the results that they were expecting. So I would say that this is like a C- season from the Flames, with the caveat that if they do sneak into the playoffs, that probably bumps up to like a B-.
Yeah, that's so tricky, right? Because I do believe, and I believe since last year, right? As soon as we heard that Gaudreau looked like he was kind of on his way out the door, I don't know, something didn't smell right with this group, right? Whether it was just kind of an institutional, the way they're structuring things, the way they were managing things, just the guys they had in the room, it didn't seem right. I figured they'd probably be in this spot. They've actually kind of exceeded my expectations. The fact they have a chance at the postseason, but I don't know if a playoff series is good for this squad. I almost think missing out, having to take a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror and change is probably the best thing for them, right? So, making the postseason at this point, I don't know if it gets you further. I think it just encourages you to keep doing the same, like going down the same terrible path, right? So, I agree. C, I give them kind of a middle grade. I don't think they hit any of the metrics that you should have by any way, shape, or form, but we'll see. Maybe getting beat up.
So this is
like, could they stumble in as an 8 seed and upset the Knights? Sure, why not? Like, I don't understand hockey sometimes. That makes complete sense. You'd look at that and be like, how does that, like, how how is that on earth is that possible?
And this is where I was like, here's tinfoil hat, Grant. Because I could see the Winnipeg Jets stumbling. Like, it's not an easy schedule to end the season. The advantage they have in the standings right now is they have a game in hand. They need to win that game. That's basically, and the other advantage is that they have the other tiebreakers. They have regulation wins, they have regulation and overtime wins. The first two tiebreakers, they've got the Flames beat. But if you're not taking down at least two of these teams along the way, your postseason dreams are done. And this is where I'm going to put the tinfoil hat on. Imagine this. Imagine the Flames catch the Jets, and then Edmonton catches the Knights, and then all of a sudden we've got a Battle of Alberta in the opening round. I wouldn't be very quick to dismiss the Flames in that matchup.
Yeah, not at all. Like, and like I said, I mean, they're built. I don't think they're built well. I don't know if it's I don't want to say an incomplete as in like they're built. Like, I just don't think it's a terrible team. And yeah, they could definitely beat the Oilers. And then everyone's sitting there being like, what the heck happened? Like, they just took down a powerhouse. And again, it's going to encourage them to these bad behaviors. In the short term, great, awesome, rah, let's go Calgary. But I think next year we'll be seeing a lot more jerseys hanging in garage sales, come the end of May, if that's the case, right? Because I think this franchise is heading. I think just pull the Band-Aid off now. They should have done it last year. They shouldn't have made all these big moves. They should have, tried to flip the Huberdeau as soon as I got them, bring in the young assets. Could you imagine? Like, for the hype that Huberdeau had, to flip them to, say, like, a Montreal this year or something like that, bring in, like, a King's ransom, a couple picks, and a prospect, kind of help, get the lifeblood of this franchise going.
Yeah. And this is coming from an Oilers fan, so put as much weight on this as you'd like, but it really feels like I've been in this Calgary for, 13 years now. It really feels like this group of fans is really the most bandwagon fan-ish that we have out of any Canadian team. Like, when they're great, everybody's on board. When they're terrible, nobody's paying attention. At least in Edmonton, when we suck, at least people are throwing their jerseys on the ice and they're fucking stomping their feet. You don't get that in Calgary. Like, you don't get this, like, oh, this team's shit. Like, I'm angry, I'm a pissed off fan, and we deserve better. You don't really see that. You just see people kind of get apathetic and like, whatever, it's just the Flames, nobody cares. So, I don't know if there will be a time, like, I don't know what's needed to get this team in the right spot, but like, they tried to open up a competitive window. It's not going well. The city, for better or worse, isn't going to care if they decide to shift gears and find someone else. But, like, the roster as constructed is not yielding the best results. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if you ship out Huberdeau. I don't know if you buy out Markstrom. I don't know what it is. But, like, this team's just not pointed in the right direction right now.
It is not. So we're gonna, speaking of which, we've kind of intertwined these two teams because really they're the most interesting in terms of the Canadian teams, at least at this mark in time, is the Winnipeg Jets. They are tied with the Flames. Like we said, game in hand. We already kind of went over their schedule. In terms of where we thought they'd be this season, I'm okay with them fighting for a postseason spot, right? When they were a top 10 team earlier in this year, and it looked like Connor Hellebuck was, arguably he might be the best goalie in the league right now, right? In terms of just kind of raw performance, kind of the pieces here, and the performances he has put on with the defense in front of him, right? The fact that he kind of uplifts everyone else, makes them a little bit better. That's what great players do, right? That's what those elite guys do, and I think that's what we have there. So the fact they're in a postseason, missing out on the playoffs, I think is a little bit more detrimental to what the Winnipeg Jets are trying to build, right? But you can look at their roster up and down, and guys don't want to stay there long term. They're gonna have some issues. They're coming up on the Mark Scheifele. He's gonna need a new deal, and him at $5.5 million for the last 6 years was a gift. Oh boy, was he a gift to that organization, right? So the fact now that they're looking at, we got to pay the Connors. We need to have Ehlers. We need to have Dubois. There's a lot of money up front. So we'll see kind of what they do going forward. But overall, Mike, in the postseason, based on how I thought of the Jets last year, I'd probably give them like a B-ish, like a B minus. I don't think they killed it by any metrics, but they're here.
So I will say Connor Hellebuck gets an A. The rest of the team, probably a C. And it's just this fucking sad rhetoric that Winnipeg just can't get themselves out of. It's like Connor Hellebuck is... There's two players who I think are undervalued, and that is Kirill Kaprizov with the Minnesota Wild and Connor Hellebuck with the Winnipeg Jets. Hellebuck almost single-handedly has, buoyed this team's playoff chances. They're 5-5 over their last 10. They're like, they're below 500 since February. I did a dive a little while ago. I can't remember how far below they are, but it was substantial. Like, they've just hemorrhaged losses. And here they are, a week left in the season, playing to a final playoff spot, and they are controlling their own destiny. I know what we're going to get out of the rest of the team, and not to put too fine of a point on it, but like, Connor Hellebuck will be what carries this team in the postseason. He's going to need to steal a win against the Avs, or he's going to have to steal a win against the Predators tonight, and that could be the difference between them lamenting what could have been and actually competing against probably the Vegas Knights in the opening round. So, I don't know. This team, it's still disappointing to me. It's still disappointing to see the talent that they have, and that for some reason a coach can't come in and get the most out of the roster. It was good for half a season. It's been shit since then. Kind of makes me scared for what happens in the postseason. But as you were talking about with the Flames, you never know. Maybe Connor, and I say this every year too, a hot goalie carries a team further than they deserve to go. Maybe this is Hellebuck's year. Maybe this is, Price in the bubble. This is Hellebuck's, stanky Winnipeg Jets season. I don't know what it is. Maybe if they get there, you know what? Maybe Hellebuck carries them even further.
Yeah, they are very disappointing. The couple times I've watched the Jets game where I've bet on them, they are a very, very disappointing group of talented players, right? And I think that's probably the best way to describe it. And it's almost been the story of this team since Dustin Byfuglien kind of left the squad, where they were Stanley Cup favorites, right? I kind of forgot about this, and I was doing a random deep dive in the playoffs one year, and they had lost when Vegas went to the Stanley Cup Finals in their first year. They beat the Winnipeg Jets, but the Jets were that close, right? They were in the Western Conference Finals. They looked like they were going to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. They got bested by just a hotter squad, right? And that's kind of what it came down to. But like, we're looking at a team that's core can't have Stanley Cup Final aspirations. And I don't think they're that far removed from like that squad, right? Like maybe one or two depth pieces, really. But it's just basically guys not playing to their potential. I don't know. It's tough. I haven't seen a team like this for a while, right? That just kind of peters out. I don't know what do you do with it. Listen to any of their Rick Bowness's interviews post games, and he is as frustrated as anybody, right? He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, these guys look great. They just won't fucking do anything. It's
So random, for some reason I thought it was like February 11th their slide started. 8th worst record in the NHL since February 11th.
Good time to get cold. Great time to get cold. I believe that takes us out of the teams. We're into the single digits. That means the 7th from the top with 103 points. The Edmonton Oilers. They have a chance going for the top of the Pacific, which is where they probably should have been. Right? They're on a 6-game win streak. Can anyone stop the Oilers right now? They have 3 players over 100 points. I don't know. What do you want to say? A? Like, this is kind of what we expected from the Oilers. They had a bit of a rocky start in the middle, or somewhere in the middle. They kind of fell apart a little bit. The Jack Campbell, they had to kind of get over that lump. But, I mean, they look like they've steadied the last little bit and looking like a much more competitive squad that's pointing in the right direction. A? Right? Like, what more could you ask for?
Yeah, easily an A, I would say. And, again, they worked hard to get this A. They kind of were hovering around like the Bs, I would say, mid-season. And I don't want to put a jinx on. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to tempt the universe in any way, shape, or form. But you've heard me talk about the championship lull that we see every year, where teams kind of fall off in the middle of the season, and then they start picking things up for the postseason. I'm not saying that the Oilers are a championship team, but I'm saying that's kind of the climb that you're expecting for a team to make a deep postseason run is, all right, middle of the season, it's January, it's Edmonton, Diamonds Gentlemen's Club closed 6 nights of the week. Like, there's just not as much passion. And rather than, and like you were mentioning last week with Austin Matthews about the tapering and like, you know, amping things up at the right time, that's what we're seeing with the Oilers. And like, God bless Jack Campbell's little heart. Like, he's been playing better lately. And I'm not saying he's going to be the goalie, but if Stuart Skinner, after his first full season as a starter, is exhausted, Jack Campbell's not the liability that he was at the start of the season. And that's not to say that he's not going to fall back into old habits or all of a sudden, you know, he's not going to shit himself or he's not going to not shit himself. They have, depending on how they want to use goaltenders in the postseason or even getting to the postseason, Jack Campbell might be somebody that they can turn to. Even today against the San Jose Sharks, I don't know if starters are announced, but in a circumstance like this, I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Campbell was the guy to be like, here, afternoon contest, we want to get Stuart Skinner ready for a couple nights down the road when we're taking on, who is it, Vegas, whoever it is they're playing, Avalanche. Why not give this spot to Campbell to give Stuart Skinner a night to rest up?
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, I don't know how since Ekholm's come in, right? Like, defensively, they're playing much better. Like, one of the biggest trade acquisitions of the year. I mean, as much as we want to give Ken Holland guff and criticize and belittle, a good pickup. You know, if you're going to make a pickup, make the best pickup. It'd be interesting to see how Campbell plays with this new kind of steady defensive system that they kind of I think he still kind of sucks, and occasionally you're just like, what are you doing, Jack? I don't know. He needs to get his head right, needs a friend. Maybe he finds one here and goes from there. But yeah, other than that, Oilers, all in all, it's a pretty big season. The Oilers and the next team, the Leafs, who are, what are they, 6th, 103 points as well. That's kind of what you expect, right? Like, locked in second. They couldn't beat the historic Boston Bruins. Like, the Boston Bruins are, I think they have a chance. They need 2 points to be the best team ever? I don't know. They have 62 wins, guys. That means they've only lost 20 games all season. And the Leafs are second compared to them. Does the regular season even matter? Just looking at Edmonton and Toronto, like, based on us as fans sitting here, like, we have Leafs on the walls, we got Oilers on the walls. Are these not good seasons? Like, is this not a successful season for these franchises? Knowing that just the pain and the misery that you could have 5 first overall picks, right? Like, the fact that you were leading the divisions, you have a chance at them. Well, at least Oilers do, the Leafs don't. Again, they're playing, there's historically great teams around them between the Lightning and the Bruins, right? Does the regular season just not that matter? Like, the MVP has lived in Canada for the last, it's going to be 3 years in a row.
I think that you're on the right track with that question. Like, does it matter? And the answer is no.
Right.
But I would say it's no for the Toronto Maple Leafs and yes for the Oilers. And I'll make the distinction because Edmonton suffered through a lot of lean years, and having a 150-point scorer, having 300 point or 100-point players, 2 50-goal scorers, you know, haven't taken a run at a Pacific Division title for the first time since the 80s, that matters for the Oilers. But the Leafs have been here before. This is the same scenario that has played out for the last 6 years, where you've had teams better than them. No offense to the Leafs, but like the Bolts in their last few years, the Bruins this year, like, as good as Toronto has been, and they have been one of the best, they've been trying to get past, like, I don't know, the best teams the NHL has to offer. And that's why it doesn't matter for Toronto, because they keep doing the same thing over and over again, and they keep getting the same results in the postseason. And I think that for them to get out of this rut and to prove that they are the best, it needs to come in the postseason.
So then that leads, like, into a whole, so if the regular season doesn't matter, then why don't we shorten it and just make the postseason faster, or make another in-season tournament, or have cool tournaments with best on best, right? Like, why aren't we doing mini Olympics every year? if the regular season doesn't mean anything, right? So it is the weird dichotomy, and everyone's going to look at every team a little differently. But I think at the end of the day, we're all going to come down to it doesn't really matter, right? If the Oilers go and get swept in the first round of the playoffs, are you going to look back and be like, oh yeah, Connor McDavid had his Triple Crown season. We had 300-point scorers. We had 250. Like, it doesn't matter almost, right? So it's one of those things where because we devalue, and it's just the way all sports work. Right? Anything from the NFL to baseball, regular season really doesn't mean anything. And then what are we doing for 6 months a year? Right? Maybe Calgary Flames fans have it right. Just jump on the bandwagon when the team's good. Don't care about them otherwise, because this doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
I thought what was it during the pandemic a couple years ago? We had gone through, at least I had gone through a big nihilist phase. It sounds like maybe that's what the attitude that would best suit the Calgary Flames. Like, you know what? You're right. It doesn't matter. This team owes you nothing. Don't care about them because they don't care about you.
Pretty much. And then final thing, I'll give the Leafs like Grant's right. It kind of does come down to the postseason. You're not going to get a better shot at it, right? Just based on the way that your squad is constructed. How much, just how much we're throwing at it, and then looking at like a depleted Tampa Bay on the other side. Like, if you lose that first round matchup, just, I don't know, move down the street to Kingston or something like that, because I don't know, this might be done, guys. Might be fucking done.
Okay, I got one loaded rhetorical question to really just dig the knife in. Which one of the 4 Maple Leafs goalies is going to start in the postseason?
Joseph the Brick Wall, obviously.
I have so much concerns about starting Ilya Samsonov, and maybe we'll talk more about this. You know what? I'll come loaded with data next week. But Russian netminders in the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not what you want. I mean, the only plus side is I think the only down couple games I can think of is he had a couple bad performances. It was against like New Jersey when he gave up 7 goals, but it was the day before, 2 days before his wife gave birth to their first child. So he probably had other things on the mind. I think it was like 2 days later, there was like pictures of him with a baby on Twitter. So chances are, if you know your wife's going into like labor and you're starting a game, you're probably not thinking very much about the game, right? Like, and I'll give people like that credit, right? Like, there's just bad situations. So yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting. Matt Murray's on the shelf. Who knows if he's coming back for the postseason? It honestly feels like Samsonov is the guy. Yeah. He's been playing well, but it feels too on the nose for the Leafs to not get a bad performance.
Yeah, but like then we're looking at Vegas, and you're telling me that they have Jonathan Quick and Lauren Brossoit. Like, that's the tandem that's going to take them to the promised land, and you're making fun of Murray and Samsonov. Like, what are we doing here? Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell? Oh my gosh! Like, where are the good goalies right now? Like, I think that's actually more of a discrepancy, and something I've played with on my own. I realize we're going a little long here on our headlines, but this is kind of like, I guess, season end show, right? Is where are all the good goalies? If look at the projected rosters of like what Team Canada would look right, and like, who are we starting? We're starting nobody. We have been spoiled. We've been absolutely spoiled for the last 30 years to have the Marty Brodeurs, the Patrick Waugh, the Carey Prices, the Luongos. We always had this big, larger-than-life goalie in net for Team Canada, and right now, that guy doesn't exist, right? Like, there's no one to be found in NHL. We have a glut of just, where are all the good goalies? If you're not named Vasilevsky or Hellebuck, show me some goalies, and I'm like, I guess, right? Like,
so to borrow, I don't want to steal Paula Cole's thunder or anything, but where have all the good goalies gone? Because I agree, Marc-Andre Fleury, he's making waves in the Central Division. Like, what the fuck out of here, man? He's been doing this for 20 years. Like, Marc-Andre Fleury shouldn't be the man, but he is.
Very, very much so, right? And like, it's an interesting exercise. So if anyone's ever bored or look at goalies for some of these like top teams in the list, and you're gonna be like, oh, everyone just has, sure. Like,
Linus Ullmark is the Linus Ullmark, who couldn't get a job with any other team for years, is the Vezina winner. So let that sink in.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's just weird. We're in a weird place for goalies right now, and we need some Canadian goalie to step up. I blame Carter Hart. I blame Carter Hart for all of this. The reason the Flyers suck, Team Canada goalie situation, you should have been better. That's all I'm saying, is you should have been better. But that is our 45-minute rendition of headlines to wrap up the season. There we go. Look at that. Huh, cool. Which is fair, because I guess there's lots of teams we're probably not thinking about anymore. Like, after this, what we're talking about, 3 Canadian teams?
It's going to be an abbreviated show next week. And it's just going to get shorter from there.
Yeah, and then we just start, we're like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it just to get on and talk about, like, the Calgary Flames in the conference finals. I don't care. Like, let's...
Yeah, like a bad Tinder date, we're going to ghost you before the end of the season. So, inevitably, it happens every year.
So that means this is the last full day of hockey. And full day. This is the first day ever. We have 16 hockey games. All 32 teams are playing today. So NHL.com, you and your terrible daily fantasy predictions. They went 2 for 4 last week. Who did they hit on? I wrote it down. Miguel Sergachev had an assist, and Timo Meier had 5 points. But the other picks were terrible. So let's see what kind of terrible picks you can give today. You want a goal tonight?
I'm going to say no.
Okay, well then Carter Verhaeghe is not scoring anything for you. The Florida Panthers, prolific as he were. Assist? Elias Pettersson? I actually don't hate that one. Okay, all right.
I like Pettersson as a trigger man. They should have flopped those, flipped those. But anyways.
Yeah, all right. Power play point, Alex Killorn, the depleted Tampa Bay, playing against the really, why are they playing hockey Senators? Alex Killorn is your power play point man. Sure. I mean, makes sense. Like, they have no one else.
Okay.
All right, and then
I don't hate it.
All right, and then finally shots on goal. You got to look to Pittsburgh. They're playing for a postseason spot right now. Brian Rust.
Oh, man. You could have gone in a few different directions there and yielded a much better result, but don't worry, Jake Gensel, Sidney Crosby, or Evgeny Malkin, or I don't even know who Chris Letang's playing. No hard feelings. These guys just suck at their job.
Not at all. Speaking of guys who speak a daily fantasy advice, I'm not even going to bother writing those down because I don't know if we'll look at that next week. Maybe we'll. All right. FanDuel. Usually we give out fantasy advice. I was doing all right. I feel like I had like 2-3 solid weeks, and then I kind of pooped myself last week and did a nothing. Grant, how did you do? I ended up with 84 points, and I was 38th out of 44 people. Boo.
I was touting how confident I was in this lineup at the outset, and it was misguided, misplaced confidence. I had no right being that full of myself. I knew the Oilers were going to have a good showing. I browsed past Leon Draisaitl, went straight to Nugent Hopkins to pair with Connor McDavid. What a fuck up that was. Dry had that hat trick, and he had, I don't even know how many fantasy points, but a whole shitload, I imagine. Connor McDavid, whatever, 28.5 points. It is what it is. We know what to expect. Nugent Hopkins had 11.2, but didn't live up to his salary. Everybody else pooped themselves, including Marc-Andre Fleury, who I had in a goaltending spot, ended up losing, and only put up 19.2 points. So 79.7 is where I ended with 2 zeros.
Yeah, I also had a 0 from Mitch Marner, which is unfortunate when I'm paying like $99,000 for him. I should have done something. And my goalie, Ivan Prosevit. He was in Arizona. He had minus 8.8 points. So I should have just started no one.
Damn. So paying attention to goaltending isn't working out for us.
It's not. I actually did better earlier in the year when I just got zeros. Like, I should have just got a 0. Because, I mean, even add that, and let's say Mitch Martin, I'd have to find a 30-point guy, 120. I don't think 120 actually would have got me anything. Yeah, I still wouldn't have made money. That was just a big scoring week. Guy who won first in my pool, he had like 221 points. It was a high-scoring week. Like, if you didn't have Leon Draisaitl with his 52 points, Carter Verhaeghe with 60 points? You kidding me? Jack Campbell, 48? Okay. So, I mean, if you weren't doing those guys, Duclair, Hyman, 25, 23, those were obviously the guys you needed. It was not a week of slumps. This guy had a 0. Cody Ceci, 0. You just had to have your 100 points from your goalie and your utility player, apparently, was the correct answer. Cool. Well, let's see what's going on today. For today, oh, nope. I should probably go Upcoming, not history. I'll just tell you, I was like, look, I got the same terrible team as last week. It's amazing. A little bit of a different strategy this week. I went to net, found the cheapest starting goalie I could, and I found Thatcher Demko. $6,900. Nice.
Nice.
Against Calgary, I don't hate their chances. You know what Vancouver might be doing right now? Trying to fuck over the Flames. Like, that's a great end of the season, right? As a Canucks fan, I'd be like, yeah, we screwed over Calgary. I'm okay with that, right? Don't hate that play. Vladislav Garvikov at $3,800 and Jacob Trouba, $5,300 on defense. I got Jaden Schwartz, $53 at utility, and then Kasperi Kakkonen, $3,900, which means I had a lot of money up front, guys. I went with Drake Batherson. You like an Ottawa Senator to score? I love Drake Batherson, $6,100. Kyle Connor, I think we mentioned him earlier in the podcast. Winnipeg's got to win. He's kind of driving their offense right now, $7,200. And then up front, I got the big point man himself, Braden Point. I think he has like a 50-goal season too.
48.
48? They got a couple games to go. No one else is playing in Tampa Bay. Playing Ottawa. Let's go. All right. $8,600. And then Mika Zibanejad, Rangers at Blue Jackets, $7,900. I don't know if they actually need points, but I imagine the Blue Jackets probably aren't playing a lot of defense at this point of the season. So that's my lineup. A little bit of sprinkling. I've tried to sprinkle a little bit instead of going big three. Tried to get like a big four. We'll see if Batherson was worth the price. Grant, who you got?
Oh, I hate my strategy, but there is some carryover. I was looking at this. I haven't felt great about it, so there's probably going to be some tinkering. So don't be surprised if we're debriefing next week and there's a little bit of change. I hate that I'm taking a contrarian approach in that. It just fucking... I look at this now, I'm like, what am I thinking? I have Charlie Lindgren, old Chuck Lindgren with the Washington Capitals, 7,700. For some reason, I just think Washington owes the Penguins no favors, but they're going to do Pittsburgh a solid tonight by defeating the Florida Panthers. And like... coming in from an objective angle, this looks terrible. I don't know if I like this at all, but we'll scoot up to the front because that's where I did like where I landed with a few picks, and that is New Jersey. It's kind of a pseudo stack. New Jersey, I think, is going to give Boston all that they can handle. I think that there's still a lot of pride on the line for Jersey, so I have Jack Hughes up front, $9,900, and Damon Severson at $3,800. It's like he plays power play minutes. I don't know. It was an affordable pick, and I learned my lesson last week. $6,000 on had been yielded absolutely nothing. I could get the same thing from Severson. At least I'm hoping.
Why does anyone pay for goalies or pay for defensemen? I think all year we've skirted by not doing it. We don't hit, but like, where are these? I don't think defensemen are worth it.
Yeah, I agree. And you said it out loud last week. Something I needed to hear because you're right. We have never been the type of guys to say, let's get a defenseman. That's not where the bulk of your fantasy points come from. Anyways, Damon Severson, and I'm actually on the Gavrikov train with you too. LA at home, I like their chances. But going back up to the front, Jack Roslovich. See, again, another fucking contrarian pick. Oh, Blue Jackets player at home against the Rangers. But I was like, I know I chatted about it maybe a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. I was like, this guy is underperforming. He's going to take a big step forward. Here's hoping. Rantanen against the Kings. I think that I want to say that he's their best player this year, and maybe I'll catch some flack for that, but I think that he's going to do big things. I am also with you on Ottawa at home, and I looked long and hard at Drake Batherson, but I ended up, and hopefully one of us hits on this, I ended up going with Alex DeBrincat instead.
That's who I had before I traded. I had DeBrincat in my lineup, and I was like, no, you know what? Batherson, he's cheaper. He's and I made the trade and then upgraded somewhere else. That's funny.
Interesting. So anyway, $6,900. Nice. We'll see where that goes. And then I paired Connor Sheary with Chuck Lindgren. I think that it's, I don't know. For some reason, I think, again, objectively looking back, I'm like, can Washington actually win at home? Who knows? And then Morgan Geekie, what was he? He was a cheap $3,800. Seattle at home against Chicago. I think that $3,800 doesn't do this guy justice, but we'll see. Maybe I'll regret it.
No, like Seattle doesn't play, like they don't have a big line. They have forward lines that can skate and score and play, and they push the puck, and I like it. I like it. Any cheap, like Schwartz, Geekie, any Kraken, they score, they shoot, right? Like offense is kind of the name of their game. So yeah, get on it. I like it. Yeah, goalie. I don't know how I feel about it, but
I don't know how I feel about it.
But like, I also sometimes don't play goalie, so I'm not the best guy to ask about fantasy advice. So, and when I do play, they get -8 points. And I'm like, great.
I was gonna say, I don't like to brag, but my goalie didn't get -8 points last week.
Well, even like the week before, or 2 weeks ago, or something like that, I had Billy Elliott playing the stupid Canadians, and he had 0 points, like 5 minutes left in the game. I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, they ended up winning, so we got like 2 points out of the deal. But I was just like, man, goalie's just, yeah.
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 Well, we'll see where it all lands. Maybe, maybe the novelty of laughing this off next week is just worth keeping it as is.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
There you go. See. Yeah, my $58 or $60. I don't think I've lost any money. If anything, I don't win money, I don't lose money. I just like constant. If I win $2, then I'll like lose a week. It's good. Good old FanDuel. I don't think it costs me anything to like play this every week. But I have a chance of winning $10 every single week. Never done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day we'll get there.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Oh, that game start. Do I have that? No. Good. All right. Sweet. Bettor Advice. So we take 100 theoretical dollars, and then we're doing gambling. 100 theoretical dollars. Gamble it every single week. Keep tabs on how we do. And then, I don't know, brag about it at the end. For myself, I think I'm up $168. So I'm losing. If I lose this week, I still end up with some plus money. Oh boy, up whole 68% of my bankroll from the start of the season. Well, not really. Not doing, well, part of my strategy was just trying to catch up to Grant, who's up something. How'd you do last week? I went 0 for 2.
I think I went 0 for 3. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank right now, and I moved my notebook.
Okay.
Let me look at the old. It wasn't a good week. I think I lost everything. Oh yeah, I did lose everything because there's no
Overtime.
no shootouts, no overtime games last week. So I'm down to 13-ish hundred.
Okay, all right. That's a good season. So not bad. I have 2 plays for today to try and play a little catch up here, and with a reputable end of season. What do you got?
You know what? I'm going to change something here. I also have 2 picks.
All right, cool.
But let me preface this. We joked about it last week, and that is I was coming in with an all-game parlay, and you know what? 2 games have started. It started off at 16 picks. Those picks have been removed because the game started. They're no longer being taken into consideration. I have a 14-leg parlay every remaining game. It was, I could at one point only bet 10 cents, but it's been upped to 50 cents because I had an overtime game. Anyways, 14 games. But before we get there, so that wager's up to 50 cents. That means I've got $99.50 left to wager. I am putting it all on the Ottawa Senators tonight. I think that this team is ready to play on home ice. And more than any other team, this team has such pronounced, road home splits. It's such a dichotomy. It makes no sense that this team is as good as they are at home and they suck as bad as they do on the road, and look no further than their latest loss to validate that. I think that they're going to give Tampa Bay more than they can handle. Tampa Bay hasn't looked good to end the season. $99.50 to win 117-41.
117.
Yeah, so I bet 9. Oh. So, I guess with the money coming back, it would be $216.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. I was like, wait, you only win $20? I'm like, what do they know? Okay, cool. All right. For myself, I'm going to just try and hit some over-unders. It's weird that across the board, I think every over-under is set at 6.5 minus, let's see, looks like Winnipeg Predators, 5.5. 6.5 across the boards. I think that might be a hard number to hit. So for my first parlay, I'm going to do two parts, one early, one late. We're going to take overs an under in Montreal, Arizona, and the Rangers. I don't think any of those games are going to hit 6.5 goals. I think they're all going to be under, as well as overs in Florida, Washington. So if there is someone, Florida's been scoring quite a bit. I think the Capitals could have offensive outbursts here. They are going to go over. So I'm going to take those 4 games 1, 2, 3, 4, plus $12.73, $50 to win $686.
Damn, that would make it close. You hit that and whatever else you got on docket, guess what? It's going to be close.
Very, very
but
close.
That is unless I hit my 50-cent 14-leg parlay. I didn't dive into this. You picking 14 games, you don't have the fucking capacity to deep dive in every one of them. So I just trusted my gut. Here we go. I'm going to rattle them off. Vegas Golden Knights at Dallas Stars, regulation tie. So I bet that game goes to overtime. Edmonton over the Sharks, minus 285. Coyotes over the Ducks, minus 152. As mentioned, Sens over the Lightning, plus 118. Leafs over the Habs, minus 375. Preds and Jets going to overtime at plus 350. Caps over the Panthers, plus 158. Rangers and Columbus going to a shootout, plus 440. Islanders over the Flyers, minus 285. Devils at Bruins going to overtime, plus 360. Under 5.5, Chicago and Seattle, plus 118. St. Louis Blues at Minnesota going to overtime, plus 410. Kings over the Avs, plus 104. And then Flames and Canucks going to overtime, plus 380. Get a load of this. 50 cents. I don't even, what is this? Plus 1.2 million. So 50 cents would get me $603,277.17. And that would be the final nail in the coffin in Bettor Advice.
There you go. I was trying to quickly fall around. I didn't hit the overtimes because those are just the options, so I just kind of clicked the favorites. There are a lot of, like, now that I'm looking ahead in the schedule and not just throwing together, man, there's some, like, underdogs that I don't hate. Well, I kind of wish I would have done that before we're into the segment. Yeah, there's a couple ones. I'm like, oh, I don't hate that. Oh, I definitely don't hate that. That looks fun. All right, the most I could do on the Play Alberta's gaming website was like plus 15. I think I could do a $3 bet that won me $60,000. All right, doesn't seem as magical. I'd want like six figures if I hit that many, right? Yeah, stupid. And then finally, my last one, I believe I have a 3-team. I'm going to go under in Chicago, Colorado, and Calgary. I don't think any of those hit over 6.5 goals. $50 to win $316. So if I hit all my picks, all 7 games correctly, I'd be up to about $1,000. Okay.
That'd be a good way to end the season.
That'd be weird if we like end and you're like at 13. I'm gonna have 1,000, and you're like, oh, you guys were close all year, and I was like, not in the slightest.
Yeah, we'll see how this whole 14-leg parlay plays out full Grand Lake, but it would be nice. That would put me down 1,200, 1,300 range. You're up to 1,000 range. That would be close. It would be a good end of the season. I'm hoping both years hit.
Didn't I hit once where it was like a 5 or like a 7 or 5-team parlay for like $600? I think it like kept us close. Like you still beat me, but it was within like pennies.
Yeah, was that 2 years ago? Anyways, I know what you're talking about because it got super close at the end of the year. It just like the gap just shrunk.
And it looked super close, and I was like, oh no, I was doing literally the worst I've ever done. I just hit a giant parlay last week, and now I'm respectable. So
gambling, I look okay.
Gambling, yeah, perfect, great, cool. All right, so with that wraps up, guys. That is it. Next week when we talk to you, we'll be done. We'll know everything. We'll be able to kind of, I guess, I don't care about awards in the slightest, and probably comes to. Like, I don't hold the regular season in that high regard anymore. So,
yeah. All the awards are spoken for.
Oh, the awards.
We know Connor McDavid's Hart, Linus Ullmark's Vezina, Erik Karlsson's Norris. I don't actually even know who's up for grabs for the Calder this year, but I think it's that kid out of
Matty Berniers or whatever. Yeah,
that's him.
Yeah, cool.
So anyways. And like you, I couldn't care less. But next season or next week's playoff preview notwithstanding, the Canada Puck Podcast would not be the Canada Puck Podcast without our babe of the week. And in the spirit of the Women's World Championship, which is going on right now, I have elected to highlight another Canadian babe. And she actually earns... I landed on this lady because she earns so much more street cred with one of her deals that she has. Laura Stacey, LauraStacey. Laura Stacey, absolute babe, but she also has a partnership with Proline in Ontario, so she's actively advertising gambling. I don't know how many more boxes this lady could possibly check for me. Laura Stacey, you are our babe of the week. Schwing.
Schwing. She's just going to put on jerseys, and that's who she picks. It's adorable.
Yeah. And that, maybe that speaks to you. I know you got a closet full of jerseys back there, too. And, more importantly, you surprise us every week with whatever it is you're wearing, so...
Yeah, I kind of got stale. I was going to do something fun for today, but I don't know, like Leafs bandwagon. It's probably better for next week. I wasn't feeling creative. I did put shorts on this morning, so like below the camera, I'm also doing pretty well. I'm pretty excited, pretty warm. I was sweating on my morning walk this morning. Spring is in the air.
That was me yesterday. I was stupid me. I wear shorts year round, but I had socks and shoes on. I was like, this is a big fuck up. So anyways, it's shorts and sandal season from now probably till October.
Yes, we did it. We survived. Much better, except I don't really love the birds chirping and the sun being up at like 7. What's that about?
Spring fucking sucks, man. Spring is the worst season. It's muddy. It's gross.
I know. We had like Good Friday. You're thinking, I'm going to sleep in. This will be great. And then you have a woodpecker pecking at your fucking chimney at 7. And you're like, fuck sakes.
Oh,
yeah.
Stupid birds.
Stupid birds. But that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoy the last week that was. Hopefully your team is in the playoffs, maybe competing for a lottery pick, and you're not one of those muddled teams that are going to be stressed out this next week and have your heart broken. It'd suck.
Yeah. There's going to be some fans in a different mood next week. Mm-hmm. We're both sitting pretty. As a loyal Leafs and Oilers fan, you know what? These berths have been locked up for weeks. We will have stuff to talk about next week. Looking forward to digging into the postseason and what the landscape actually looks like.
That's it. So as we wind down, we'll be back probably next playoff preview. Maybe a little bit of a recap of the season. And probably not spend too much time on it. And go from there. So cool. It was a good season, Mr. Grant. Look forward to kind of carrying on with until we like fall off randomly. We'll get to like the Western Finals and be like,
yeah, that's it.
Like we said, it's nice out and it's sunny, and we don't want to sit in our basements anymore. This is a winter activity.
These beers aren't going to drink themselves on the patio, that's for sure.
No, they won't. Cool. So with that, till next week, we will say, I guess, at the end of a season, and party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.